Richard Trevithick was not a man to be put off by the odd unexpected explosion, which was good because his second steam-powered road vehicle really paved the way for the first railway locomotive. In the early 1800s, London was the busiest city in Europe, with a population of over 1 million. Most travelled around the city by foot, the more wealthy in horse-drawn carriages. Captain Dick had a bold plan to revolutionise transport in the capital, with his next brilliant invention, a self-propelled bus. Here is the first ever London bus, the London steam carriage. And like Trevithick himself, it's a bit of a beast. This lovingly crafted, though bizarre-looking contraption is a replica of Trevithick's original machine. Look at these massive 8-foot wheels. Trevithick believed the roads in London to be in a shocking state. By using larger wheels, he hoped to provide a comfier ride. The heart of any machine, of course, is the engine and boiler. And look at this, absolutely tiny compared to the Bolton and Watt Leviathans. That's thanks to high-pressure steam. And once the pressure's up, we'll take her for a spin around Regent's Park, part of her original route. In 1802, Trevithick's steam carriage had a series of trials across London, including a run along Oxford Street. This machine was so outlandish that shops were closed and the street was cleared of horses and carriages as the crowds came out to watch the spectacle. And now it's my turn to create a bit of a spectacle. Please tell me, how do I drive this machine?
The steering is just by tiller here.
Yeah? And what about a brake?
Oh, don't worry about that.
Of all the things I've driven in my life, this is the one I've secretly got the most fear about, because I just do not know what is going to happen when I get aboard this thing and open up the regulator. But we're going to find out now. Right, we have our throttle here, our tiller here, no mirrors, and we're off.
There you go, that's it.
God save us.
Right.
We're moving. We're going. Incredible. Just incredible. Oh, this is amazing. It is unlike anything that I've ever driven. You know, for 1802, it's just extraordinary. Trevithick's steam bus could carry up to 8 people and was capable of up to 8 miles an hour. All made possible by his brilliant engine design. The firebox is built inside the cylindrical boiler. 2 flues run out of the front of the firebox back through the boiler to the chimney, so he's maximised the hot surface area that's turning water into high-pressure steam. At £30 per square inch, it uses 10 times higher pressure than that Watt pumping engine. Trevithick's single cylinder is also built into the boiler. Keeping it warm makes it more efficient. And it's double acting. Valves inject steam into one side of the piston and then the other, so both strokes are power strokes. Those power strokes are converted into rotation using a forked piston rod attached to the crankshaft. And the drive is transmitted through gears to each rear wheel. All in, the engine weighs just 300 kilograms and produces 3 horsepower. That power-to-weight ratio is the key. It's a superb, compact and very efficient design. But what on earth did the public make of it in 1802?
I've got Trevithick expert Phil Hoskins in the back of my bus to tell me more.
This was so unlike anything that people had seen in a world of the horse and carriage. But what did people think? How did they react?
They didn't know what they were looking at. They saw something arrive in front of them which didn't have horses. It was spitting fire and it was puffing and chuffing. Well, they're absolutely amazed.
Unfortunately, Trevithick's success was short-lived. On one run at the heady speed of 6 miles an hour, he took out a whole garden fence. It was carnage. But the steam carriage was revolutionary. The ability to power a vehicle with a high-pressure steam engine would soon change the world.
The steam engine on this carriage was the development of every steam engine as we know it today. Being cylindrical, it can hold high pressure. When you've got a boiler that will hold high pressure, you can do almost anything.
The world had never seen anything like this before. A passenger carrying vehicle with no horse in sight. But Trevithick was ahead of his time. The London steam carriage was just too outlandish, too strange, too terrifying to be a success. Fortunately, nothing could stop Trevithick's belief in his inventions, and he had already set in motion construction of another even more important design. At Coalbrookdale in Shropshire, today a picture postcard scene. But at the turn of the 19th century, this place was a hive of industry, dirty, smelly and noisy. With coal and iron ore reserves and good transport links thanks to the River Severn, this was the birthplace of the Industrial Revolution. Home to the world's first iron bridge and another first.
You may think you know the first railway locomotive in history, but I bet you're not thinking of this one. This is a replica of a machine built by Trevithick, or at least to his design, in 1802. Very little is known about it, but it's thought to be a kind of prototype of his first working load-pulling locomotive.
This crazy collection of cogs and connecting rods is known as the Coalbrookdale locomotive. And although it looks a bit Heath Robinson, the experts here are in no doubt about its importance.
I mean, it's incredibly important. I mean, you think this thing was built, never mind Stephenson's rocket, this was built before Trafalgar. Yes. You know, yes. This is a high-pressure steam engine. You know, this is the thing that put the chuff in the Industrial Revolution. This is high-pressure steam at work. And you start to put it in context to the world events of the time. It's absolutely amazing. This is like landing on the moon.
I can't wait to have a go on it, with driver Cyril Connew. One small step for me, one giant chuff for mankind.
Oh, off we go. Look at that. Superb.
On the first steam train.
There you go, we're on the first steam train, yes.
In many ways, the design is very similar to the London steam carriage, with a single cylinder set inside a cylindrical boiler that operates at 45 pounds per square inch. A trombone-style arrangement of piston and connecting rods drives a big flywheel on one side and a gear wheel on the other. With about 7 horsepower, this machine could probably do about 5 miles an hour. But there are differences.
Part of the driving experience of this Coalbrookdale locomotive is the fact that you're on a machine that doesn't have any brakes, and you have to stop it with steam.
Yes, put it in reverse.
By changing the way the steam enters the cylinder, letting steam into the wrong end, the steam acts as a brake, slowing the piston down and bringing the engine to a stop.
Ah, there we go. So you're letting steam in the other side?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Perfect. I suppose it's a great pity we've got such a short stretch of track.
We're hoping later to get that bridge down behind us.
Yeah.
And then we can take the track right back.
That's the blast pipe we're hearing now, isn't it? Oh, hello.
Hold on, Cyril. We're not extending that line just yet.
That's me not taking notice.
Oh, you're right. Sorry, it's my fault, Cyril,
That's
for...
all right.
As I said, no brakes. It happens.
It's proved the point.
It has, yeah.
Of course, this machine does have one very big, very important difference to the London steam carriage. It runs on a track. And there was a very real concern whether rails, with their low friction, would provide enough traction for a steam-powered loco to work. You need friction for traction. And on a damp day like today, the 4.5-ton Coalbrookdale locomotive barely has enough. were actually getting wheel spin. The solution, as Trevithick must have realised, was that a practical load-pulling loco would need to be both more powerful and a lot heavier, which proved easier said than done. 2 years later, to win a wager between two South Wales ironworks owners, Trevithick unveiled his 7-ton, 17-horsepower Penny Darren, named after the location of the ironworks. And in February 1804, he successfully hauled 10 tons of iron down a 9-mile tramway. This loco's extra weight gave better traction, but it was so heavy, it soon broke the rails it ran on.
After a short time in service, the locomotive ran off the rails, was hauled back to Penny Darren by horses, and spent the rest of her days working as a stationary engine.
Close, but no cigar, which unfortunately was becoming a way of life for Trevithick.
As you can see from his inventions, he was a brilliant pioneer, a masterful engineer, but ahead of his time, eventually dying in poverty while others continued the revolution inspired by his ideas.
Over the next 20 years, engineers across the country, inspired by Trevithick, tried their hand at building steam locomotives for their tramways. At one colliery, Killingworth in County Durham, the chief engineer built a series of machines that culminated in my next great British locomotive, Locomotion Number 1. The key to the success of this machine was that its designer, George Stephenson, was the man who finally tackled the problem of the rails.
The very earliest tramways were made of wood, but they'd wear out quickly due to the weight of wagons on them. The Penny Darren ran on iron rails, an improvement, but not perfect. Why? Because the rails were made out of cast iron.
Cast iron was made, as the name suggests, by pouring molten iron into a cast. But with a high carbon content, the finished product is very brittle, which means although it's strong under compression, it's very weak under tension. Great for bridge supports, but when a cast iron rail has to support a locomotive, this happens.
And that's pretty much what happened to the rails the Penny Darren ran on.
So Stephenson turned to another type of iron, one that was much less brittle thanks to a lower carbon content. Worked, or wrought iron. It had been used for centuries, worked by smithies to make everything from horseshoes to nails. But a new manufacturing process developed in the late 18th century made wrought iron much cheaper. Stephenson insisted on using wrought iron rails on the project that made him famous, the world's first public railway. He was hired by a wealthy merchant, Edward Pease, who in 1821 had persuaded Parliament to let him construct a 27-mile line linking collieries in the northeast and the town of Darlington to the River Tees at Stockton.
The line was originally going to be a horse-drawn tramway, but Stephenson persuaded Pease to let him resurvey the route, operate at least part of it with steam locomotives, and even to carry passengers.
The line took 4 years to build, with 48-foot-high embankments, stationary engines to help trains up the steeper inclines, and a stone railway bridge spanning the River Skerne. Meanwhile, Stephenson and his son Robert set up a new company to build a new locomotive in time for the opening of the line.
The Manchester Guardian made the opening announcement. A superior locomotive engine of the most improved construction will be employed with a train of convenient carriages for the conveyance of proprietors and strangers. Strangers indeed. And here is that superior locomotive engine, Locomotion Number 1. George Stephenson's finest locomotive to date and the first locomotive in the world to operate a passenger service.